Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Have you ever wanted to crochet a pair of perfectly fitting, cozy socks, but felt a little intimidated by the complicated heel? Well, today I have the perfect solution for you. In this tutorial, we're going to create these absolutely charming socks featuring a revolutionary anatomical heel. It's an incredibly simple, stepped technique that creates a flawless fit. And the best part is, there are no complex increases or decreases to worry about. It's even easier than other methods you might have seen, making it perfect for anyone ready to crochet their best pair of socks yet. So let's get started. For these socks, I used a yarn that would be considered a light sport or heavy fingering weight. The skein I used has approximately 200 meters per 80 grams, which is equivalent to about 250 meters per 100 grams. For durability and comfort, a blend of wool and a synthetic fiber like nylon is an excellent choice for socks. The great news is that this is a very common weight for sock yarn, and you can find many beautiful options from a wide variety of manufacturers with similar specifications. For my size 36, US 5.5 sock, I used just over 40 grams of yarn. This means a single 80-gram skein is perfect for one sock. But you will definitely need two skeins to complete a pair, especially if you are making a larger size. I paired this yarn with a 4mm crochet hook. It created a wonderfully flexible slip-stitch fabric that's comfortable and not at all stiff, a perfect match for this project. In addition to your yarn and hook, you'll need just a few other simple tools. Grab some smooth waste yarn in a contrasting color for the provisional start. You'll also need a tapestry needle for seaming and weaving in ends, and a few stitch markers will be incredibly helpful for keeping track of key points. Now for the most important step before we begin. Checking your gauge. My gauge for this project is 23 slip stitches over 10 centimeters or 4 inches. I can't stress this enough. Please take a moment to crochet a small swatch with your chosen yarn and hook. Getting the gauge right is the key to a perfectly fitting sock. If your swatch matches my gauge, you can follow the stitch counts in this tutorial exactly. If it's different, you can easily adjust the numbers to get a perfect custom fit. A question I get asked all the time is about the seam. If it runs along the bottom of the foot, won't it be bulky and uncomfortable? With traditional seaming methods, that would be a valid concern. However, this pattern uses a special joining technique that I've perfected for this type of slip-stitch fabric. It's a completely seamless join that perfectly mimics the path of the yarn within the stitches themselves. The result is a join that is not only invisible on both the inside and the outside, but it's also completely flat. It simply becomes a part of the fabric, so there is no ridge or thickness whatsoever. You won't be able to see it or feel it. That's why I strongly recommend practicing this seaming method on your gauge swatch before you begin the sock itself. It will give you the confidence to create a truly professional and comfortable finished item. Let's talk for a moment about why other joining methods aren't ideal for this project. You might see other crafters on YouTube use techniques like a Kitchener-style stitch for crafting, or joining the two sides with a row of slip stitches. And yes, those methods can look quite nice, but they are never as perfectly flawless as this one, especially not from both sides of the fabric. But the biggest issue is that any other method will create bulk. That extra thickness will be right in the seam, which is exactly where you don't want it on the sole of a sock. That's why, in my opinion, any other joining technique is simply unsuitable for this kind of Bosnian slip stitch fabric. This is especially true when my ideal method exists, which creates a perfectly flat join. I mean, where can you even find it? It's just not there. It's completely invisible from the right side and the wrong side. And naturally, you can't feel it by touch either.
Okay, that's enough of my lyrical digression. Let's get started with the crocheting. First, take your contrasting waste yarn and your main crochet hook. We're going to begin by making a foundation chain of 80 chain stitches. This chain may look surprisingly long, but that's only because the chain itself is looser than our final crocheted fabric. The finished slip stitch panel will be much narrower, so don't worry. Just as a reminder, I am making a size 36 sock. If you are making a larger size, you can simply add 1 chain stitch for each size you go up. For example, for a size 37, you would chain 81. For a size 38, chain 82. For a size 39, chain 83, and so on. This initial chain will determine the length of the foot. Once your chain is complete, it's time to switch to your main yarn. We are going to start by crocheting several full-length rows in our main color. This section will form the very bottom of the sock's sole, right under the arch of your foot.
Now, with your main yarn, make a turning chain. Insert your hook into the second chain from the hook. For me, this is the second orange chain, and make a slip stitch. Continue working 1 slip stitch into the back loop of each chain across the entire foundation chain. In this type of fabric, all of our stitches will be worked in the back loop only. Keep going, making 1 slip stitch in each chain. At the end of the row, you should have a total of 80 slip stitches, which is exactly the number of chains you started with. Keep working like this all the way to the end of the row. I've now crocheted all 80 slip stitches in the back loops. Now we will move on to crocheting the second row. Row 2, make a turning chain and turn your work. Again, insert your hook into the second chain from the hook and work a slip stitch. Then work a slip stitch into the next stitch and the next. In this second row, you will once again have a total of 80 slip stitches. Continue crocheting like this all the way to the very end of the row. This edge here, where my starting tail is, will be the toe of the sock. The other edge, without the white yarn tail, will be the opening where you put your foot in. Okay, I'm finishing up the second row in the main yarn. I'm making the final stitch in the last white stitch of the previous row. That makes 80. Now for the third row, it's exactly the same. Make a turning chain and turn your work, and again, work 80 slip stitches in the back loop only, all the way to the end of the row. I'm finishing the third row now. 79, and here is 80, right into this last stitch. And now for the fourth row, it's exactly the same. Make a turning chain and turn. Again, starting in the second chain from the hook, work 80 slip stitches in the back loop only, all the way to the end of the row. The fifth row is also the same. Make a turning chain, and starting in the second chain from the hook, begin working your slip stitches. Once again, there will be 80 slip stitches in this row. I have now finished the fifth row. Next up is the sixth row, row 6. Make a turning chain and turn. Just as before, start working slip stitches in the back loop only, beginning in the second chain from the hook. However, this time, you are not going to work all 80 stitches. Instead, you will work only 78 slip stitches. In this sixth row, I am not working all the way to the end of the row. I'm stopping right here. This is the beginning of the shaping for the toe itself, because a sock needs a slant. These are the short rows for the toe. So in this sixth row, which is our first short row, you will crochet 78 stitches. I finished the sixth row, and now I'm placing a marker. This marker is in my 40th stitch, and it indicates this point right here, the very peak of the heel. How do I determine this? I take a measuring tape. Remembering that I'm making a size 36, which is about 22 centimeters, I leave some room for the toe turn and measure back to about 20 centimeters. If you have a larger foot size, you can simply measure for your size, 41, 42, 43, 44, and so on. If your gauge matches mine, then this stitch will be the center point. Okay, now make a turning chain. I will work 38 stitches until I reach the marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 36, 37, and the marked stitch is 38. So I have worked this section, and now the heel begins, or rather, the heel has already started. From here, work 2 more slip stitches. If the marker is in your way, you can remove it. I'll leave mine in. Work 1, 2. This will be our join. Now, turn your work and pay close attention here. Do not make a turning chain. This is part of the joining technique. This time, we are going to skip 2 stitches from the hook. Insert your hook into the 3rd stitch from the hook, like this, and begin working slip stitches. I am going to work 14 slip stitches. This initial number of slip stitches is for this section right here on the finished sock. I am using 14. If you want a much larger sock, you could do 16, 18, or 20, but always use an even number so that you can decrease down to a final step of 2 stitches. A 3-stitch step won't look as nice, and I haven't tried it with one. I found that an even number works best. So let's work those stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I have worked the first 14 stitches.
Now make a turning chain and turn your work. Heading back in the other direction, we are going to work another 14 slip stitches. This time, we start in the traditional way. Insert the hook into the 2nd chain from the hook and work in the back loop only. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Next, we will join this heel section to the main body of the sock again. Insert your hook under the horizontal bar at the base of the turn. You need to pick up this little strand of yarn right here. Now we will work 2 more slip stitches to join. That's 1. The second one is just a regular slip stitch into the next stitch. That's 2. Now, turn your work to head back in the other direction. Once again, we will skip the first 2 stitches. Insert your hook into the 3rd stitch. Now, we will work 12 slip stitches, which means we are not working all the way to the end of the previous heel row. We are stopping 2 stitches short. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
As you can see very clearly here, the number of stitches in our heel section is decreasing. It will decrease by 2 stitches with every pair of rows. Once again, make a turning chain and turn. Now, work another 12 slip stitches back in the other direction, starting in the 2nd chain from the hook. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, find that horizontal bar again. You can see it right here. Insert your hook under it and into the next stitch of the main body below, and work another 2-stitch join. 1, and into the next stitch, 2. Turn your work. Now we will work 10 slip stitches starting in the 3rd chain from the hook. Remember, no turning chain on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Make a turning chain and turn. Work 10 slip stitches back in the other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, insert your hook into the horizontal bar and the row below and work another 2-stitch join for the join. 1, 2. That's our join. Turn. Again, no turning chain. Skip 2 stitches and start in the 3rd. Now it will be 8 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Make a turning chain and turn. Work 8 slip stitches back in the other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, insert into the bar and work another 2-stitch join. 1, 2. Now, without a turning chain, skip 2 and start in the 3rd stitch to work 6 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make a turning chain and turn. Work 6 slip stitches back in the other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Insert into the bar and work another 2-stitch join for the slip join. 1 and 2. Turn. No turning chain. Start in the 3rd stitch and work 4 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make a turning chain and turn. Work 4 slip stitches back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, insert your hook into the horizontal bar and the row below and make your 2-stitch join. 1 and 2. Turn. Again, start in the 3rd stitch from the hook, no turning chain, and now make 2 slip stitches. 1 and 2. And there it is. The delicate, beautiful, neat, and very simple heel is complete. Now, make a turning chain again and turn. This time, I am going to work all the stitches all the way to the end of the row. I'm working 1, 2, and again, don't forget to pick up the horizontal bar here and into the row below. That makes 3. In total, on this section, you need to work 28 slip stitches. 2 of those stitches belong to the heel, and the remaining 26 stitches are for the rest of the sock opening. It's this number, 26, that you need to remember. If your count is different, remember your own number: 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So upon completion, I have 28 stitches. And with that, the heel is almost finished. Next, I will work a row that goes across all of these steps, and on this row, I will once again stop 2 stitches short of the end. And basically, if we count this whole heel section as one row, and for convenience, that's what I'll do, then that was the 7th row. Now I am crocheting the 8th row. Make a turning chain and turn. On this row, I will work across all the stitches, but once again, I will not work the last 2 stitches at the toe end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 27, 28. I've reached the first step of the heel. Here, I'll pick up the horizontal bar and go down into the row below. That's 29, 30. I've reached the next step. Again, pick up the bar, 31, 32. Again, pick up the bar, 33, 34. Pick up the bar, 35, 36. Pick up the bar, 37, 38. Pick up the bar, 39, 40. Pick up the bar. This last bar joins into the 41st stitch. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62. And look how beautifully it has closed up all those steps on the heel. So in total, in this row, I have 62 stitches. I left 2 stitches unworked, and from the row before, 2 were unworked. So that means if we add in the 4 stitches left at the toe, the total length is 66 stitches. So with this heel, with this curve, we started with 80 stitches, and with this heel method, I have decreased by 14 stitches because I now have 66 stitches for the full length. So that number that I started with at the beginning, remember when I set aside 14 stitches here? If you crochet the heel this way, it will decrease the stitch count for the top of the foot by exactly 14 stitches. Okay, the next row is the 9th. Make a turning chain and turn. On this row, I will simply work 62 slip stitches back in the other direction. We are now just continuing with the short rows to shape the slant of the toe. Next is the 10th row. Make a turning chain and turn. Starting in the second chain from the hook, I will work 60 slip stitches in the back loop
only. So I will work across the heel section and the entire row, and once again, I will stop 2 stitches short of the end. The 10th row is complete.
Row 11, make a turning chain and turn. And again, work 60 slip stitches back in the other direction, all the way to the end of the row. Row 12, make a turning chain and turn. This row will again be short by 2 more stitches. So this time, I will work 58 slip stitches. I'll be working up to this point right here. Row 13, make a turning chain and turn. And now, working back in the other direction, I will simply work 58 slip stitches, starting in the second chain from the hook. And with that, the short rows for the toe shaping are complete. As you can see, that makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 steps for the toe. Row 13 is done. And next, row 14 is a full row. It will work across all of these steps. In the finished sock, it's this row right here. You see, it joins all the steps together. Okay, chain 1 for the turn, turn. We start crocheting into the second chain from the hook. 1. First, I'll work 58 slip stitches and we'll meet back here. I will show you how to connect the steps. I've worked 58 slip stitches. Now I insert the hook into the connecting bar and into the row below. 59 and into the next stitch for 60. Again into the connecting bar and into the row below. 61, 62, just like we did on the heel. Into the connecting bar, into the row below, 63, 64, 65, 66, and there, row 14 is done. Now for row 15 in the opposite direction. It's just 66 slip stitches. Chain 1 for the turn, turn, and work 66 slip stitches through the back loop only to the end of the row. And we can already see that about a quarter of the sock is finished. Here it is. This section here, it's for the side of the sole, near the heel. So with the toe over here, this whole part is now done. I finished row 15 and I'm up to row 16. For row 16, I again make a chain 1 for the turn, turn, into the second chain from the hook, I start making slip stitches. And in the 16th row, I'm working 58 slip stitches. That is, I need to start making short rows again. Look, I am shortening it to this point, so that my short row mirrors the last short row. Not like here. Here, I left 2 stitches and started the toe, leaving 2 stitches, 2 stitches, 2 stitches, 2 stitches. Now we are working in the opposite direction. First, I leave 8 stitches unworked, then I'll leave 6 stitches, then 4 stitches, then 2 stitches, and then I'll work a full row again. So in this 16th row, I work 58 slip stitches. Row 16 is done. I've worked 58 stitches. I left 8 stitches unworked. Chain 1 for the turn, turn, and this will be row 17. In the opposite direction, just 58 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Through the back loop only, to the very end of the row. Row 17 is done. Next is row 18, which will have 2 more stitches than row 17. Chain 1 for the turn, turn, and this will be 60 slip stitches, through the back loop only. That is, I work 58, and then I take 2 stitches from the row below. I've worked 58. I pick up the connecting bar. into the row below, this will be stitch 59 and 60, and that was row 18. See, these short rows are now going in mirror image to the previous short rows. Chain 1 for the turn, turn. Next is row 19. Here, it's just 60 slip stitches through the back loop only to the end of the row. The next row is 20, and here I again make it 2 stitches longer than row 19. Chain 1 for the turn, turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 59, 60. I make the connection, that's 61 and 62. Next row, 21, chain 1 for the turn, turn, and here it's just 62 slip stitches through the back loop only to the end of the row. (61), 62. Next row, 22, chain 1 for the turn, turn. Into the second chain from the hook, I start making slip stitches through the back loop only. In this row, I again make it 2 stitches longer than the previous one, so I'm making 64 slip stitches in row 22. 61, 62. I make a connection with the row below. That's 63 and 64. Next is row 23. That's a chain 1 for the turn, turn, and here again it's just 64 slip stitches to the end of the row. Row 24, next will be a chain 1 for the turn, and row 24 works all the stitches to the end of the toe. That is, it will have a total of 66 stitches. Just the same, into the second chain from the hook, through the back loop only, I start making slip stitches. And in total, there should be 5 pairs of these full rows that work all the stitches, with 66 stitches each. So that's rows 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. I probably won't show you how to crochet all of these rows because it's all clear here. Just work all the stitches. Make a chain 1 for the turn at the beginning of each row and turn. (63), 64, again I make a connection into the row below. That's 65 and 66. That's it. Row 24 is done, and next is row 25, in the opposite direction, a full row. Look how this toe shaping turns out. It looks very beautiful and very neat. Continue working on your own, 5 pairs of full rows up to row 33 inclusive, and we'll meet there. That is, we'll meet after row 33 and start decreasing for this wedge. I've crocheted 33 rows. Look, here we have 5 pairs of full rows at the toe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you think you have a wide foot, well, first of all, I want to say that this yarn stretches beautifully. But if you still feel you have a wide foot, then make more pairs of full rows. That is, work rows 34 and 35 as full rows too. This amount is enough for me. Starting from row 34, I will again start making short rows. So, row 34, chain 1 for the turn, turn. Into the second chain from the hook, through the back loop only, I start making slip stitches, and in row 34, I do not work the last 2 stitches of the row. This means I work 64 slip stitches. I've worked 64 stitches, leaving 2 stitches unworked. Now chain 1 for the turn, turn. In the opposite direction, for row 35, work 64 slip stitches to the end of the row. Row 35 is done. Next is row 36. Again, chain 1 for the turn, turn. Into the second chain from the hook, and here I start working slip stitches through the back loop only again, and again I don't go all the way to the end of the row, leaving another 2 stitches. So in total, that will be 62 stitches in row 36. Row 36 is done. I don't work the last 2 stitches here. It had 62 slip stitches. Row 37, chain 1 for the turn, turn. And it will have exactly 62 slip stitches as well, through the back loop only. I'm working to the very edge. Row 37 is done. Next is row 38, chain 1 for the turn, turn. And here, again, I leave 2 stitches unworked. So in row 38, there will be 60 slip stitches, through the back loop only, meaning I work up to here. Row 38 is done. Row 39, chain 1 for the turn, turn. In the opposite direction, again, 60 slip stitches through the back loop only. Row 39 is done, and next is row 40. Chain 1 for the turn, turn. And here, again, into the second chain from the hook, through the back loop only, I work slip stitches. And in this row, there will be 58 of them. That is, I'm still leaving 2 stitches unworked from the very last step. I work to this point. I finished row 40, now row 41 in the opposite direction. Chain 1 for the turn, turn, and here I work 58 slip stitches through the back loop only. That is, to the very edge. And now row 42, this pair, 42 and 43, it will again work across all the steps, finish the row to the end, make all the connections, and create this beautiful edge. So row 42, chain 1 for the turn, turn, it will have 66 slip stitches through the back loop only, to the very end of the toe. So in row 42, I am approaching the steps. In principle, we've done all this several times, but I'll show it one more time. I pick up the connecting bar and go down into the row below. I work the stitch. And the next stitch. Each step only has 2 stitches. Again, I insert the hook into the connecting bar, into the row below, and I work a slip stitch, 1, and into the next slip stitch, 2. Again, 3, and 4. I pick it up again, and here I am reaching the very toe. That was row 42. Now for row 43. This is a full row again. Chain 1 for the turn, turn. And here again, 66 slip stitches through the back loop only to the very end of the row. Row 43 is done, and now we begin the second half of this toe shaping. That is, I work row 44 up to this point, leaving 8 stitches unworked. So in row 44, I do a chain 1 for the turn, turn.
Into the second chain from the hook, I insert the hook and work through the back loop only 58 slip stitches. Row 44 is done. Row 45 in the opposite direction is just 58 slip stitches. Row 45 is done. Row 46, chain 1 for the turn, turn, and here I work 60 slip stitches through the back loop only. That is, I reach the step, work across it, and add 2 more stitches. I've reached the edge of the step, I make the connection, 59, and into the next spot, 60. That was row 46. Row 47, chain 1 for the turn, turn, in the opposite direction, just 60 slip stitches through the back loop only to the end of the row. Row 47 is done. Next is row 48. It will be 2 stitches longer, so it will have 62 stitches. All the same, chain 1 for the turn, turn, and through the back loop only, I work slip stitches. 62 slip stitches for row 48 and 49. So I've finished rows 48-49, next will be 50-51, and this is the exact point where we will start making the second part of the heel. Remember, back here I asked you to remember the number 26. We're going to need it now. I count from this edge where the sock opening is 26 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I place a marker on the 26th stitch. In principle, that's almost everything you need to know to crochet the second half of the heel exactly the same, perfectly symmetrical. So this point, let me show you, this point is this point here. There they are, lying opposite each other. Okay, row 50 is the heel row. Chain 1 for the turn, turn, and I first work through the back loop only. Into the second chain from the hook, I work 26 slip stitches, so right up to the marker, including the marker stitch. And so, here is the 26th stitch. I work it. You can remove the marker if it's in your way. I'll leave it. And then I continue crocheting and will work 2 more slip stitches. This is where our heel begins. 1 and 2. Now I make a turning chain, turn, and in the opposite direction into the second chain from the hook. Notice, this heel is worked differently than the previous one. You don't need to refer to the previous heel. You need to focus on what I'm saying. So, I've made the turning chain. Into the second chain from the hook, I begin working and I work 2 slip stitches. Excellent! Again, chain 1 for the turn, turn, and again into the second chain from the hook. I work 1, 2, and then I insert the hook into the connecting bar and make a connection with the row below.
3, 4. So here I've worked 4 slip stitches. Again, chain 1 for the turn, turn, and again into the second chain from the hook. I start working 1, 2, 3, 4, and I work 4 slip stitches. Again, chain 1 for the turn, turn, and now I work 6 slip stitches starting in the second chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chain 1 for the turn, turn, and again 6 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chain 1 for the turn, turn, and now 8 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I make a connection. I go down into the row below. That's 7. And 8. Chain 1 for the turn, turn, and in the opposite direction, 8 slip stitches. Into the second chain from the hook, I start working slip stitches through the back loop only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Chain 1 for the turn, turn, and into the second chain from the hook, and here I make 10 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I make a connection. Into the row below. That's 9. And one more stitch is 10. In the opposite direction. Chain 1 for the turn, turn, and here into the second chain from the hook, I start making slip stitches, and there will be just 10 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 9. And one more stitch is 10. Chain 1 for the turn, turn, and now 12 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 'I make a connection, 11 and 12. In the opposite direction, chain 1 for the turn, turn, and again 12 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Chain 1 for the turn, turn, and here there will be 14 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I make a connection, 13 and 14. Again, chain 1 for the turn, and on the way back, I'm working 14 slip stitches. I'll start the same way, in the second stitch from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Chain 1 for the turn. Now remember how the first part of our heel started with 14 stitches? Well, the key is to be symmetrical, so the last row for this second part of the heel also needs to end with 14 stitches. So if you're following a different calculation and you started with another number, like 15, 16, or 17, then you just need to work until you reach your starting number. For me, I started with 14 and I've just reached that number. So now I'm going to work all the way across this row. I'll go past the step, remembering that I need to lengthen the row by 2 more stitches, and I'll work right up to this point here. Okay, so let's count how many stitches we'll have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's the 14 from the heel. Now I get to the step, so I'll make the connection here. And now I just keep going across the rest of the stitches on the main part of the sock. 15 and 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, all the way up to 36. Now for the last connection, 37, 38, and that just leaves 39 and 40. There we go, 40 stitches in total. Perfect. Remember how we started with 40 stitches on the other side way back at the beginning? We've come right back to that same number. It means everything has lined up exactly as it should. And all of that was just a single 50th row. That's how I count it. It's just the one with the heel. And next, the 51st row. In the 51st row, we are going to work across this little heel like this. Watch how the 51st row is worked. Chain 1 for the turn. And first, I'll work 38 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. I approach the heel and start working it. Here I will work as follows. Look, there is this little bump and a thread. I insert my hook into the thread and into the bump, like this, and make one stitch. And then into this space and make a second. Again, into the thread and bump, 3, 4, 5, 6, into the thread and bump, 7, 8, into the thread and bump, into the thread and bump 9, 10, into the thread and bump 11, 12, into the thread and bump 13, and here into the last point of the heel, 14. So again, I have 14 stitches. This is the very same number that was in the last row we set aside right here at the very beginning, 14 stitches. So if you set aside a different number, I repeat, like 16, 18, 20, then that's the number you will get here. I set aside 14, so I get 14. And then, to the end of the row, there will be 26 slip stitches through the back loop only. And so in total in this row, this was row 51, there are 78 slip stitches. And that's correct. With the 2 left over, we arrive at the number 80, which is the same number I cast on at the very beginning. So row 51 is done. Row 52, chain 1 for the turn, turn. Row 52 is worked all the way to the toe. It will be a full row and it will have 80 slip stitches. I start as always into the second chain from the hook, and as always, I work through the back loop only. Okay, row 52. I'm reaching the step. Again, I make the connection into the connecting bar, into the row below, and I've worked 80 stitches. If you have a different number, then there's a mistake somewhere and the sock won't come together at the end. You need to find the mistake and frog back to that point. Next will be row 53 with 80 stitches, row 54 with 80 stitches, and row 55 with 80 stitches as well. There are no more complex or interesting parts in this pattern, so finish up to row 55 on your own and we'll meet there. I have 55 rows done, and next will be the last row, 56. It will be done with a needle, and it will sew this sock together perfectly like this. Look, here you need to measure the yarn you need to leave. And another life hack on how to do this, take your hook and crochet this row first. Chain 1 for the turn. Through the back loop only, from the second chain from the hook, work the same slip stitches you've been working before to the very end of the row. And at the end, add approximately 30 centimeters, about 12 inches, to the length you have, because we will also be sewing up this toe with the same thread. Cut the yarn, and you'll have a piece of the right length to sew this sock, and also to sew the toe of this sock. Now for how to sew the sock. So here is the last stitch. I thread the yarn onto a needle, and here is the last stitch. I insert the needle into the stitch. This will imitate the first chain 1 for the turn that we did at the beginning of each row. I've shown this seam probably a million times. And in all my videos where I crochet with a hook, like with needles, then sew the item, I show exactly this seam, and I always suggest using it. Here, I have a contrasting thread from the very beginning. It was the foundation chain. And I look at how this contrasting thread goes through the work. Here it is, catching 2 strands like this. And with the needle, I repeat the same thing. And now, into the loop that we just made. Into the loop that I worked in the previous step. And I bring it back out through the next edge stitch. Now I'm going to bring the needle right back through the loop we just created on the working side. Then I'll pull it snug. You want to tighten it so the tension matches your crocheting. Not too tight, not too loose. The goal is to make the seam blend right in so it doesn't pucker or look different from the rest of the fabric. So let's do that again. Just follow the path of that orange yarn. See how it catches those 2 strands? I'll pick those up with my needle. Now, go into the loop you just created and then bring the needle right back out through the loop from the previous stitch. Then I bring the needle out through the next edge stitch. These stitches along the side here are what I call the edge stitches, the last stitch of each row. So into the next edge stitch and back through the loop we just made. By doing this, I'm essentially recreating the look of the crocheted stitches, but with a needle. And I'm just going to repeat this over and over again. Into the loop, into the edge stitch. Into the edge stitch, into the loop. I'll grab the 2 strands that the contrast yarn is pointing to. Then back into the loop, here it is, and into the edge stitch. Into the next edge stitch and into the loop that was just created. Give it a little tug. Again, grab the 2 strands, into the loop, into the edge stitch. Into the next edge stitch, into the loop you just made. Pull it snug. Grab the 2 strands, into the loop, into the edge stitch. Into the edge stitch, into the loop. Grab the 2 strands, into the loop, into the edge stitch. Into the edge stitch, into the loop. Okay, so you get the idea. Just keep working like this all the way down to the toe. We'll meet up there, and don't cut your yarn yet. By the way, if this is hard to see in this video for any reason, please know that I have tons of other videos where I show this exact seam. I'll leave a link to the whole playlist down below. Maybe the yarn color isn't offering enough contrast, or maybe the lighting is just a little off. I'm not sure, but please do check out the other videos if you're struggling. I've shown this seam a million times. So I'm going to work my way down to the toe. I'll meet you there, and we'll sew the toe closed. All right, I'm just finishing up the last few stitches on the toe here. Now, if you've done everything correctly and started with that count of 80 stitches, this seam should come together perfectly, stitch for stitch, and your yarn ends will meet right at the same point. Okay, just the last couple of stitches. Let's put one right here, like that. And that's it. And you can just tie these two little yarn tails together in a simple little knot. I'm not going to cut the yarn just yet. Next, I'll take a tool, you can use the same needle or a knitting needle, and I'm going to carefully pull out my foundation chain yarn. Don't worry, nothing is going to unravel and your stitches won't drop, as long as you did the seam correctly. And you see, what you're left with is this seamless, knitted-looking join. It looks exactly the same as all the other rows of slip stitches. So now I'll just remove this contrasting yarn, and then I'll show you how to cinch the toe closed. Okay, the contrasting yarn is out, and now I'm going to sew the toe closed. If you look here, you should see 5 braids or ridges on this side, and then one more on each of the sides. And I'm basically just going to try and stitch from one braid across to the other. I'll work my way across in one direction just using a simple whip stitch right over the edge. Okay, and I'll make sure to catch this edge braid over here too. All right, and now I'll go back in the opposite direction. I'm doing the same thing, just whip stitching over the edge and giving it a little tug to tighten. Okay, and I'll do the same for this side. Again, I'll catch that side braid and work my way back towards the center again, and just like that. Okay, catching the side braid one more time, and returning to the center. And of course, I'm doing all of this sewing on the wrong side of the sock. And I work my way to the center. You can tie the little threads together here, but you probably don't even need to. I'm just going to hide the tail by weaving it right into the stitches of a row, just like this. With this method of making socks, you only end up with 2 yarn tails in total for the whole project, which is great. And this is exactly how I hide both of them. I'm turning the sock right side out, and here we go. Let's take a look at the finished sock. Now, this toe hasn't been blocked yet. It's still waiting for a good wash and shaping to really even out the stitches. You can see the heel on one side, and here's that nice heel wedge on the other. But for comparison, this sock over here has been blocked. For the final step, I just wash it, let it dry. You can even give it a light press with an iron, and then I can show you the final, completed pair of socks. I also wanted to take a moment to mention my Telegram channel. It's a place where you can share photos of your finished projects from my tutorials, and you can ask questions and get help pretty much in real time. Everyone is welcome to join. The link for that will be down in the description. Also, please don't forget to check if you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. If you've been watching my videos but haven't subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate it if you did. It's the best way to stay updated with new videos, so it's more convenient for you too. Thank you in advance for your likes, and thank you so much for watching